Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we have North Point staff, all the NPM staff, all the campus staff. We've got a bunch of folks joining us from our partner network. So thank you for joining us, elders, stewardship team. And I would guess a few of you have people hiding somewhere in your office, and that's okay too. This isn't a secret, but this is a very important meeting, and I just appreciate you taking the time to join us. And I'm going to jump right in. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a few opening remarks, and then Kendra Fleming is going to give you sort of an overview and a timeline. Then I've asked Debbie to make some remarks at the end, some suggestions about a few things, and then I'll close. And I don't know how long this will take, but I don't think it'll be a lot of time. But thank you very much for joining and being a part of this. It's obviously really important. So I'm going to read a few comments, and then I'll turn it over to Kendra. And my assumption is perhaps a few of you don't even know why we're doing this. So if there's more context than you think you need, that's for those who are again, just joining us because we ask you to. So this past Thursday, as many of you know, a woman posted a detailed account of a multi-year relationship with Reggie Joiner that began when she was a teenager. And it was posted on Danielle Strickland's social platform that she calls Hagar's Voice. And I just want to begin by saying that I believe this woman's story. I reached out to her through Debbie Causey, and Debbie and I actually went over to her home yesterday afternoon after church and spent about 2.5 hours talking with her. And it was a great conversation, and she wanted me to let you know that Debbie and I had that conversation with her. If you read the article, her story is very hard to read. I read every word. She recounted years of grooming and manipulation by a man that she trusted, a pastor. As most of you or many of you know, I've known Reggie Joiner for probably 35 years, or at least I thought I did. And his double life is difficult for me to fathom or digest, but I absolutely believe her story. Unfortunately, and this is what brings us to this moment, unfortunately, Danielle Strickland did not give me and did not give you and did not give us an opportunity to read the portion of the story that included our organization and included my name. As it is written, it leaves the impression that we, and specifically Debbie Causey and I, as you'll see in just a minute, but Debbie Causey and I in particular were accessories to her abuse. It appears we covered for Reggie and then sent him on to his next ministry assignment, which has happened so many times that I can understand why people would jump to that conclusion, but that is definitely the impression she left. But as you're about to discover, that's not the case. And here's one of the reasons this is so important to me. It really is not about me, although I have been accused of that. What you do day in and day out to create safe places for people, safe spaces for adults, children, high school students, middle school students, is too important for me to ignore this, because this undermines what we have worked so hard to do and what we have consistently done year after year after year. On Friday, Sandra and I were just again, trying to think through or kind of feel through what this meant for us, for me, for our church, for our churches. And she made this comment. She said, if we thought, I'm just going to read, this was her quote. She said, if we thought for a minute that Reggie was not a safe person, we would never have allowed, much less encouraged Allie, our daughter, to teach and record content at the Rethink offices or at the Orange offices, or to travel alone to Wrightsville to speak at Reggie's camp. And when she said that, for some reason, that had not dawned on me. Of course, we would have never allowed our own daughter to be part of that. And then, coincidentally, about an hour later, Allie texted me, and she had just read the article. And here's what she said in her text, and I asked her for permission to share this. She texted, I told Clay, her husband, if you had known about that stuff, you wouldn't have let me within 100 miles of him. And she is correct, because I'm not just a pastor. Like many of you, I'm a father. So at this time, I'm going to ask Kendra to take over, and she's going to give you a bit of history, and then she's going to share some of her thoughts along the way, and then Debbie Causey will take it from there. So Kendra.
So this is really important to me, so I wrote down what I wanted to share today. Last year in April, when I heard what had happened at Orange, I was so sad. I was sad for a lot of my friends who worked there. I was sad for all the work they've done for kids through the years. I was sad for all the churches that they served. I was sad for Reggie's kids, who I love and I've known for a really long time. And then I heard the accusation of abuse, and it just broke my heart. And I believed it as soon as I heard it. Several months ago, I sat in the room with one of the women, and she shared her story with me in great detail. And it's not my story to tell, but it was devastating. She was open. She was vulnerable. She was raw. She was overwhelmed and in pain. She was truthful. Her story was really painful and heavy. And I still carry that today. And I believed her. She then told me about another woman, the woman who shared her story on Thursday. And this also just broke my heart. After reading the details of her story and seeing the grooming and the progression of long-term abuse, to hear how Reggie used his power and position and his greater life experience to manipulate two young women was horrifying to me. What I've learned in the last 2 years is that two women, or in this past year, what I've learned is that two women that I knew personally were abused by someone that I thought I knew. I hope you all read the article. I hope you read the story, as painful as it is. I hope you read it. I hope it really impresses on you that we have so much responsibility for kids and for students and for each other and our teammates around us. We have a high responsibility as human beings. We have a high responsibility as followers of Jesus. It's why we have to continue to educate ourselves and our volunteers. It's why we can never, ever be lazy with the safe practices we have in place. It's why we have to hold people accountable when we see behaviors that aren't safe. If you see a gap and you're on our team, you need to call them out. We have to be vigilant. This is all of our responsibility. I was hired in 2001. Reggie was my boss. I was a children's director, and I worked closely with him and the whole family ministry team. In 2006, a young woman that I knew well and who did administrative work for Reggie brought me a cell phone bill for Reggie's phone. What was brought to my attention were dozens of late night texts to a number that I knew was not Reggie's wife. I found out who the number belonged to, and I asked Reggie about it. His explanation was that this took place during a camp. He'd taken his son's cell phone away, and his son had gotten on his personal phone in the hotel room and texted through the night with his girlfriend. He shared with me that his son was going through a hard time. And since I had identified the recipients of the text, I knew this individual was a friend of Reggie's children. I believed him when he told me that this was Reggie's son's girlfriend. It was known to me that Reggie's son was going through a hard time, although I didn't really know the details, but his explanation rang true to me. And so as a follow-up, I just asked Reggie to share what was going on with his son and with the phone bill with another pastor on staff, which he did. And I did not inform Andy about it at the time. A month later, another phone bill belonging to Reggie was brought to me. Same pattern, same number. This time I took it directly to Andy and shared the name of the person on the other end of the text stream. Andy requested a meeting with the young woman to share her side of the concerning information. As he often does, he asked Debbie Causey, a director on our staff who works in care ministry, to come along. Debbie agreed and let him know that she was already in a mentoring relationship with this individual and would be happy to come and support her in this conversation. Debbie arranged the meeting and brought her to Andy's office. In light of their relationship, Debbie led the conversation. The young woman acknowledged the late night texting and connected it to an issue with Reggie's son. She gave no indication that anything more serious was going on. If she had, we would have responded immediately. And because of the age difference and his position, we would have held Reggie 100% responsible. Andy then confronted Reggie. Reggie claimed that he was trying to help her and his son navigate a difficult situation. Andy told him his behavior was inappropriate, regardless of the subject matter, that it must cease immediately. After the meeting, Debbie continued to meet with this young woman, weekly for a while and then more occasionally. They've stayed in touch up until this present time. As far as we knew during this time, nothing surfaced about any kind of an inappropriate relationship with Reggie. A month later, Reggie resigned to pursue his work with the nonprofit that he had started while working for us. Our organization's growing frustration with the overlap of Reggie's nonprofit, his use of content, and the crossover of employee use was a growing issue known to many of us at that time. Several months before that, the young woman we met with began contracting with Reggie's nonprofit and eventually went to work there. Debbie Causey was in contact with her during this entire time. Debbie did not know that the relationship with Reggie had become sexualized with the young woman until she revealed it to her 4 years ago. Debbie kept that information confidential, as she was asked to do by the woman, and as she is trained to do as a licensed counselor and care pastor, even though this was a mentoring relationship. The request for confidentiality was appropriate, and Debbie honored it. Last year, April 2024, Reggie and Kristen Ivy, an executive with Reggie's nonprofit, confessed to an affair, something she later amended to clergy sexual abuse. When this became public, the young woman we met with released Debbie from her confidentiality because her story was similar to Kristen's, and she wondered if there were other women as well. For that reason, she felt it was time to get her story into the open, which she did with a small group initially and to the public this past Thursday. I want you to know that we believe her story. We understand why it was so important to make it public. The reason for this detailed account is not to discredit her story in any way. Unfortunately, her recounting of the conversation in Andy's office does not accurately reflect his response and the response of our staff. If we had known then what we know now, that would have been Reggie's last day with our organization. Andy would have encouraged her to press charges, and Debbie and Andy would have seen to it that our organization assisted her in the process. Andy has a long track record of taking immediate action on issues like this. So does Debbie, and so do I. This story, as it stands, leaves the impression that our churches, and Andy in particular, are not safe places for women who have experienced abuse and clergy sexual abuse in particular. This is absolutely not the case. This topic is too important to allow false impression of our concern for women to go unaddressed. You may be asked questions by your friends, by parents, and people who attend our churches and have read the article. And so I want to take a minute to clarify a few things. This article states that the public will not hear our honest account of Reggie's abuse from his former employers, specifically Andy Stanley, who knew of Reggie's pattern prior to last April. Andy did not know of Reggie's pattern. One of the reasons the young woman chose to share her story is to make everyone aware of Reggie's pattern of manipulation and abuse. If Andy would have known, he would have confronted Reggie. The article also says, Andy advised me to run as far as I could from the Joiner family, and he did not open an investigation or provide me with support that would make such an escape possible. Andy does not recall telling her to run from the Joiners. Based on what she told Andy and Debbie, there was nothing left to investigate regarding their relationship. She continued to work with Reggie, and we had no reason not to believe that what she told us about the nature of the communication was true. In Andy's recent communication with Danielle Strickland, she informed him that the young woman told her that Reggie pressured her to lie. After reading her story, we can see how that would be true, and we can understand why she did it. None of us fault her for that in light of the manipulation she was experiencing at the time. Regarding support and a safe person to make an escape possible, a director-level staff member and a trained counselor, Debbie Causey, continued to meet with her for months. The article states, Reggie Joiner's cell phone record, which showed evidence of stalker-like behavior toward me. The phone record was why we reached out to begin with. She never gave the impression that she was being stalked or that she was in danger. The article says he, Andy, allowed Reggie to resign from North Point with honor and a public celebration. This leaves the impression that Reggie exited the organization soon after the phone bill investigation so that we could move him on knowing he was guilty. And that is not the case. Reggie continued in his role for a month and then resigned to devote full-time attention to his nonprofit. Many of us helped him in this endeavor. Andy gave him the option of staying to work at North Point or leaving to run his nonprofit, but that he could not continue to do both. His departure was not connected to this incident. The article states, without proper accountability, Reggie continued to abuse me during the time of his exit from North Point. If she had even implied Reggie was abusing her, we would have confronted him immediately and done everything in our power to protect her. It states Andy did not follow up then, and he has not followed up since evidence of Reggie's abuse became public this past year. Debbie Causey followed up on a consistent basis for months. Reggie's affair became public last year. None of us were aware of any abusive behavior before that. If we had been aware, we would have responded. The article states, and made no attempt to name that he, Andy, knows to be true, Reggie is and has been a sexual predator for decades. Again, Andy did not know that to be true. Nobody did. Many of us, including Danielle Strickland, continued to work with Reggie until the story of the affair broke in April of 2024. If Andy or any of us had even heard a rumor of Reggie being a sexual predator, we would have confronted him. And finally, the article states, I no longer believe that those in power will do the right thing if they only know what happened. They know. They simply lack the courage and the integrity to say it. That is true of some, but it is not true of Andy. It's not true of our staff, and it's not true of our churches. Now, Debbie would like to share a few words.
I just wanted to say a few words to those of you that may be a little unsure about what we have said today, or maybe you've experienced something similar to the young woman's story and didn't feel like you had anyone that you could talk to about it. First off, I want to tell you that if there's any doubt in your mind whether Andy knew about this young woman's abuse, let me ease your mind and tell you he truly didn't. And the reason that I know that is because I met with her weekly, as Kendra said, and I still didn't know this was going on until 4 years ago when she confided in me, when Reggie had been out of the organization for 15 years at that point. Secondly, I want each of you to know that if anything similar has happened to you or will happen to you in the future, whether it's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or just inappropriate behavior that makes you uncomfortable, you can come to us. We have systems in place for you to be able to come forward, and all of your information will be held confidential. Our care staff is here for you, and we will help you work through it. We may not be able to catch everything that happens right away or fire every leader at the early signs of abuse, because we may need to investigate it a little further, but it will be taken seriously. Let me assure you, you will not be penalized for coming forward. We truly care about each of you, your emotional health, your physical health, your safety, and your spiritual health. We will work through next steps. We'll give you resources, and we will help you handle this situation directly. I want to emphasize, we are here for you. I know you may have a lot of questions for me personally, and I'm happy to answer those. If you want to come to me about why I held some things confidential, as I'm trained to do and as is important to me, so feel free to do that and do not hesitate to reach out. That's it for me, Andy.
Thanks, Kendra, and thank you, Debbie. Three quick things before we close. I can imagine we've answered some of your questions, filled in a few gaps, but I'm sure many of you have more questions. This is such an extraordinarily emotional topic, and it is probably nearer and dearer and closer to home for many of us than many of us know about each other, because it's not something we talk about. So as you think about what you just heard, you may already have questions, but days from now, weeks from now, if you have questions, I would like for you, if you would, to direct your questions to Diane, that would be to our office, to Kendra, or to Debbie, or to Joel. And the reason I want to limit the scope there, for obvious reasons, because of the nature of the topic, but also because specifically Debbie and Kendra have been, as you just discovered, very, very much a part of this story from the very beginning. And Debbie, as she mentioned, was already in a mentoring relationship with the young woman. Second thing is if when people ask you, and I'm sure they're already asking you, you're free to share anything that you just heard today. This is not private in the sense that we don't want people to know the full story. As you can imagine, of course, we want them to know the full story. But here's the sensitivity that we're dealing with, and we take this very seriously. The last thing we want to do is to undermine the integrity of the full story of what this young woman experienced. After meeting with her yesterday for 2.5 hours with Debbie, it's sorry, it's worse than she even described. It's beyond tragic. It's disgusting. So anyway, you're free to share this information because we're, in a sense, we're trying to clear our reputation, but at the same time, we do not want to undermine the integrity of the story because all of us believe it. And the thing that I shared with her yesterday in our conversation, I said the part of the tragedy of this is that I believed you then and I believe you now. And I apologized to her because there was a sense in which we had if we had known more, we had the opportunity to stop something that has gone on for years, not just in her life, but in the lives of other young women. And that, I'm sorry, that sits heavy on our hearts, Debbie and I in particular. So again, you're free to share anything you've heard. We just ask that you be good stewards of this information and that you share it appropriately. And then the last thing is the question has come up, and this is a good question. Are we going to take this knowledge or this information to a broader circle, to our congregation in general? And the answer is we don't know. I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm going to wait. We're going to wait, and then we'll decide, but we'll certainly let you know. We're just going to wait and see. And that's difficult. There are some Christian media that are reaching out because they picked up this story. And my primary frustration, just to go full circle again, my primary frustration in all this is with Danielle Strickland. When she knew that she was about to post on her platform a story with someone's name in it other than the name of the person that was, the perpetrator in this case, my name, and then the name of the church, which reflects on all of us. Danielle and I are friends, as you know, she's been here several times speaking for us. She has my cell phone number. She should have called me and said, Andy, we're going to release a story, not to get permission to release it, but to let us know ahead of time. And if she had, we would have been able to address some of the specifics of that encounter or the meeting that I had with the young lady, with Debbie. So that's very unfortunate, and that's unfortunately why we're having to do some of this cleanup. But at the same time, the sensitivity is we don't want to say anything or do anything that further diminishes what this young lady has experienced, because it's beyond tragic. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not sure what we're going to do beyond this in terms of providing an explanation. So that's it. Thank you so much for the time you have devoted to this. We will trust that you'll be good stewards with the information. And if anything else happens or comes from this, we will certainly let you be the first to know. Thanks, and we will see you soon. See you in the halls.